At my birthday dinner, my mom whispered to my dad, "Tell your son to go change the locks on her apartment." My brother left. An hour later, he came back pale and said, "Mom, in there." Mom leaned over to Dad's ear and whispered something I wasn't supposed to hear, but I did. "While everyone's here, tell your son to go and change the locks on her apartment." I froze with my fork halfway to my mouth. 25 years old. My birthday. And here it was. It had begun. Dad nodded without looking at me. Lars, my older brother, nodded too and got up from the table. No one said a word. They pretended I didn't exist, even though they had set the table with salads, roast chicken, and a heart-shaped cake that Mom had ordered from the bakery on Maple Street, just for me. I hadn't seen them in 3 months. 3 long months since the last conversation ended with shouting and closed doors. But my mother called a week ago. Her voice was firm, but I could hear the exhaustion in it. "Sophie, come home for your birthday. You're still our daughter. Family is family." I didn't want to go. Judson said, "Don't go if you're not ready." But something inside me, some foolish remnant of hope, whispered, "What if they've changed? What if everything will be different?" Now, sitting at this table, I realized that nothing had changed. Lars took the car keys and left without explanation. Mom smiled as she cut the cake. "Sophia, have some more salad. You've lost weight." She always knew how to pretend that everything was fine. Helena Krebs, owner of the Flex Zone Fitness Club chain, was a woman who controlled every aspect of her life and the lives of her loved ones. 5 clubs across the county, hundreds of clients, a perfect reputation. She had built it from scratch in 15 years and was proud of every achievement. Dad was silent as usual. Victor Krebs, CFO, had always been his wife's shadow. He stared at his plate, methodically cutting the chicken into small pieces. Chewing, swallowing. He never interfered. Even when Mom yelled at me, he just sat there and looked away as if he weren't there. I put down my fork. A piece of chicken got stuck in my throat. "Mom, why did you send Lars away?" She looked up at me, cold, gray, like steel. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I heard you. You told Dad. I heard everything. You heard what you wanted to hear. You've always had a vivid imagination." I was silent. Inside, I was boiling. But I had learned to keep a straight face. 3 years at university, 3 years of lies and secrets had taught me not to show my emotions. 3 years ago, when I graduated from high school, my parents gave me a choice: enroll in the business school at Flint University and join the family business, or go my own way, as my mother said, with all the consequences that entailed. I nodded, then agreed, smiled, hugged my mother, and thanked her for her understanding. And then I applied to a small college in the neighboring county to the psychology department. It was crazy, I knew, but I couldn't pretend anymore that I wanted what they wanted. For the first 2 years, they didn't know. I lived in a dorm, rarely came home, made up excuses, exams, projects, internships. I studied well, very well, because it was mine, not theirs. The teachers praised me, and the dean offered me a scholarship. For the first time, I felt like I was doing something right. In my 3rd year, my teacher, Marjorie St. Clair, offered to let me rent her apartment. She was moving to another state to be with her daughter, who had just given birth. The apartment was small, 1 room, on the 3rd floor of an old brick building on Oakland Avenue. The windows overlooked the park. The neighbors were quiet. The rent was reasonable. I agreed without hesitation. My parents found out by accident. My mother called Flint University in the fall of my senior year to check my daughter's class schedule. They told her they didn't have a student by that name. My mother came to the dorm. I hadn't been there for a long time. She started calling, searching, asking my old classmates, and finally dug up the truth. That conversation was awful. My mother screamed that I was a traitor, that I had destroyed all her plans, that she had invested years in me, and that I had thrown it all away for some stupid psychology. And my father was silent, Lars stood to the side, staring at the floor. I cried, but I didn't give in. I said, this is my life, my decision, and I'm not going to change. Mom looked at me as if I had killed someone in the family. You've disappointed me, Sophie. Everything I've built, everything I've dreamed of. You were supposed to continue it. You were supposed to be part of the business, and now what? Are you going to listen to people complain about their lives? Yes, Mom. That's exactly what I want to do. After that, we hardly spoke. My mother called once a month, her voice formal, as if she were the boss and I were her subordinate. How's school? Do you have enough money? When will you graduate? My father never called. Lars sometimes wrote to me on Messenger. How's it going? Everything's fine. Short and emotionless. He had always been an obedient son, doing what he was told, asking no questions. And now they invited me to my birthday. And the first thing they did was send Lars to change the locks on my apartment. The apartment was registered to Marjorie, but the lease was signed in my mother's name. That's how it turned out, because I wasn't 21 at the time. Formally, my mother had the right, but it was my home, my place, where I had invested money, energy, and my soul. I looked at my watch. 20 minutes passed, then 40. Judson is at home now. He didn't go to the party because his parents didn't invite him. They didn't even know he existed. We met a year ago. At the beginning of our 4th year, he was working as a technician at the Harrison Industries factory, setting up equipment for the production of plastic parts. We met in a coffee shop near the university. He spilled coffee on me, apologized, blushed, and then invited me for coffee again to make up for it. He was different. Calm, reliable. He didn't pry into my soul with questions. He was just there. When I cried after another argument with my mother, he hugged me and said nothing. He didn't give advice or say everything will be fine. He was just there. 6 months later, he moved in with me. We didn't advertise it. I didn't tell anyone. Even Marjorie didn't know, even though the apartment was hers. Judson paid half the rent, and we lived quietly without scandals or drama. He went to work early in the morning, I went to university, and in the evening we had dinner together, watched movies and talked about trivial things. It was simple, but I was happy. Lars returned an hour later. His face was white, beads of sweat on his forehead. His shirt was wrinkled, his hands were shaking. He approached my mother and leaned over. Mom, there's someone there. My mother was alarmed. She put down the knife she was using to cut the cake. Who? A man. He was in the apartment. I had just started changing the locks when he pushed me out onto the stairs and said he would call the police if I didn't leave. He was shouting, Mom, really loudly. Silence. Heavy, thick as tar. Mom slowly turned to me. Her face was stony. Sophie, who was that? I took a deep breath. My hands were cold. Judson, my boyfriend. We've been living together for a year. The explosion was instantaneous. Mom jumped up and threw the napkin on the table. What? You're living with a man? Where did you find him? We met in the city. He works. He's a good man. He works? Where? At the Harrison Industries factory. He's a technician. He fixes equipment. Mom laughed, short, angry, as if she had heard the funniest joke in the world. A technician, of course. My daughter, who was supposed to become a businesswoman, run clubs, develop a business, lives with some worker in an apartment that I, by the way, pay for. You don't pay for it. I've been paying for it myself for a year and a half. Every month I transfer money to Marjorie. The contract is in my name. The apartment is in my name. Everything is in my name because you are nothing. You are a student with no future who decided to play psychologist. I stood up. The chair creaked as it moved back. I am not nothing. I'm graduating from university. I have an internship. You destroyed everything we built for you, Mom shouted, her face red, the veins in her neck tense. We invested years in you. Money, effort, plans. You were supposed to continue the business, expand the network, open new clubs, and you're throwing it all away for some loser who works in a factory. Judson is not a loser. He's a nobody, and you'll be a nobody if you stay with him. I was silent, the words stuck in my throat. Dad sat at the table like a statue, not moving. Lars stood by the door, looking away, his hands in his pockets. Mom came closer. Her voice was quieter but colder. Sophie, listen to me. You're still young. You can fix this. Leave him, finish this university since you've already started, and then come back. We'll forget about everything. You'll start in a low position, as an assistant, and work your way up. I'll help you. No. What do you mean, no? I'm not coming back. I'm not leaving Judson. I'm not going to be what you want me to be. Mom stepped back. She looked at me as if I were a stranger. Then go and don't come back. I went into the hall and picked up my bag. My hands were shaking, but I kept my back straight. Mom followed me, saying something, but I didn't listen. Lars touched my shoulder at the door. I'm sorry, Sophie. I was just doing what I was told. I nodded. I didn't say anything. I went out and closed the door. I got in the car and started the engine. I drove home on autopilot. I went up to the 3rd floor and opened the door with the key I had been holding in my hand the whole way. Judson was sitting on the couch, watching TV. He stood up when he saw me. His face was worried. How did it go? I hugged him and cried on his shoulder. He stroked my back and said nothing. He just held me until I calmed down. The next morning, I woke up early. Judson was still asleep, breathing evenly. I went to the mailbox on the 1st floor. The electricity bill should have been there. I opened the box, took out the envelope, and saw a note, a small piece of paper folded in half, unsigned. The handwriting was unfamiliar, printed letters, black ink. This is not the end. I didn't show Judson the note. I hid it in my pocket, burned it over the sink, and washed the ashes away with water. He asked at breakfast, "What came in the mail?" I replied, "Some advertising." He nodded and didn't ask any further questions. I tried to move on with my life. My final year, my thesis on trauma in family relationships. The irony did not escape me. The lecturer, Professor Delroy Huntsman, said that the topic was powerful and personal, but that such works turned out to be the best. I nodded, wrote down his comments, and pretended that everything was under control. But inside, something creaked, like a rusty mechanism. I waited. I didn't know what exactly, but I waited. The week passed quietly, too quietly. Judson went to work. I went to the library, wrote chapters, collected sources. In the evening, we had dinner together, as usual. He talked about the factory, about how a machine had broken down, and he had spent 3 hours repairing it while his boss yelled at him. I listened, smiled, but my thoughts were elsewhere. On Thursday evening, when we had already gone to bed, there was a knock at the door. It was sharp and insistent. Judson got up and looked at the clock. It was 11 o'clock at night. Who could it be? I didn't know. We went to the door together. Standing outside was Mrs. Crosby, our downstairs neighbor. She was an elderly woman in her 70s, always neat and tidy, wearing flowery dresses and carrying a cane. She looked at us angrily, her lips pressed together. "Mrs. Crosby, good evening. Is something wrong?" Judson asked. "Yes, there is. You were noisy all night last night. I couldn't sleep. There was banging and knocking as if you were moving furniture. And today it started again an hour ago." I looked at Judson in surprise. "We didn't move anything. We went to bed at 9 last night, both of us tired." Mrs. Crosby shook her head. "Don't lie to me, girl. I heard it all night long. Maybe it's coming from another apartment, above or next door. No, it's coming from here. I know where the sound is coming from. I've lived here for 30 years. Judson tried to calm her down. "Mrs. Crosby, I assure you, we didn't do anything. If you hear anything else, let us know right away, and we'll come out and show you that we're not home." She muttered something, turned around, and left. We closed the door. Judson looked at me. Strange. Very. The next day, I went to the university early to meet with Professor Huntsman. When I returned in the evening, Judson was sitting on the sofa with a piece of paper in his hands. His face was tense. "What's that?" I asked, taking off my jacket. "A notice from the fire department. Someone complained that we don't have enough smoke detectors. They're coming to check tomorrow." I took the paper and read, "The complaint was anonymous and filed 3 days ago. There were 2 smoke detectors in the apartment, one in the hallway and one in the kitchen. And according to the standards for a 1-room apartment, this is sufficient, but the complaint states that there are no detectors in the bedroom and bathroom, which violates safety requirements." "That's absurd," I said. "You don't need a detector in the bathroom. It's humid there, and the bedroom is the same room as the hallway." "I know, but they'll come anyway. Better to install another one so they don't bother us." Judson bought a detector the next day and installed it in the room. The inspector came in the evening, checked it, wrote something down in his notebook, and nodded. "Everything is fine, but in the future, make sure all appliances are in good working order." He left. We breathed a sigh of relief, but 3 days later, the sanitary inspection station arrived. 2 people in uniform with folders and a camera. An anonymous complaint. Unsanitary conditions, cockroaches, trash. They inspected the apartment, looked in the closets, under the bed, in the bathroom. They found nothing. The apartment was clean. I always cleaned, and Judson didn't like mess either. "The complaint is unfounded," said one of them, a middle-aged man with a mustache. "But we had to check. Someone must have gotten the wrong address." They left. I sat down on the sofa, my face in my hands. Judson sat down next to me and put his arm around my shoulders. "It's them, isn't it?" "Yes." "Your family?" "Who else?" I wanted to call Lars, yell at him, demand an explanation, but I changed my mind. I dialed my mother's number. Long, empty rings. Then the answering machine. I didn't leave a message. I wrote in the messenger, "Mom, stop," and the message didn't go through. She blocked me. A week later, I was summoned to the university. The dean of the faculty, Ms. Inisa Farley, sat at her desk with a stern expression. A piece of paper lay in front of her. "Sophia, we have received a complaint. A copy of the complaint has been sent to the sanitary and epidemiological station. Someone felt it necessary to inform us that a psychology student who is supposed to work with people lives in unsanitary conditions." I froze. "But the inspection found nothing. I have a certificate." "I know. I saw the certificate, but the complaint itself is a signal. We have to investigate." I felt something inside me break. "Miss Farley, this is revenge. My family, we had a falling out. They're trying to hurt me." She leaned forward, folded her arms on the table. "Sophie, if that's true, you need to take action, gather evidence, submit official refutations. But as long as the complaint exists, I have to investigate." I was sent to a committee consisting of 3 teachers, a university psychologist, and the dean. I brought a certificate from the sanitary and epidemiological station, photos of the apartment with the date, Judson's testimony, and letters of recommendation from professors. I spoke calmly, clearly, without emotion. They listened, asked questions, and took notes. A week later, I was informed that the case was closed. The complaint was deemed unfounded. The university apologized for the trouble. I left the dean's office with trembling legs, sat down on a bench in the hallway, and cried. Not out of relief, but out of exhaustion. Judson took me that evening. We drove home in silence. He held my hand and didn't let go. At home, he said, "We have to do something. They won't leave us alone." I know. "Let's put a camera at the entrance. We'll see who comes and what they do." He bought a small camera, mounted it above the entrance door, and disguised it as a light fixture. The camera recorded around the clock and stored the footage on a memory card. We waited. A week later, we saw Lars. He entered the building on the evening of March 7th at 8 p.m. He climbed the stairs. We heard footsteps behind the door but didn't open it. He knocked on Mrs. Crosby's door. She opened it. They talked for a few minutes. We couldn't hear the words, but we could see their gestures. Lars took out an envelope and gave it to her. She took it and nodded. He left. We watched the recording 3 times. Judson said he's paying her to complain. Yes. What are we going to do? I thought about it all night. In the morning, I called a lawyer. I found her on the internet, a small firm specializing in family law. I told her everything. The lawyer, a woman named Greta Mills, listened and took notes. Gather evidence, every complaint, every visit from the inspectors, every camera recording. Record everything, date it, save it. Then we'll see what we can do. We gathered everything. I created a folder, put copies of all the papers in it, printed out the camera footage, and wrote a chronology of events. Judson helped, checking dates and signing as a witness. By the end of March, we had 15 documents, complaints, inspections, photos, videos. I brought everything to Greta. She looked it over and nodded. That's good. Very good. Now we'll write official rebuttals and send copies to everyone who dealt with these complaints. Let them know you're not just a victim, you're fighting back. I wrote letters to the fire department, the sanitary and epidemiological station, and the university. In each letter, I clearly described the situation, added evidence, pointed out the anonymity of the complaints, and that I had suspicions about the source. Greta edited them and signed them as a lawyer. We sent them. The university responded first. Dean Farley wrote, "Thank you for the information. We are taking your explanations into account. The case is closed." The fire department responded formally. "Your explanations have been accepted. The investigation is complete." The sanitary and epidemiological station did not respond at all. I was finishing my thesis. Professor Huntsman read the draft and said it was one of the strongest works he had seen in his years of teaching. I defended it in May and received an A, a red diploma. The graduation was on a sunny day, May 31st. I put on a blue gown, took my cap, and stood in line with the other students. My parents weren't there. Lars wasn't there. But Judson was sitting in the hall in the 3rd row, smiling when I went up on stage to receive my diploma. After the ceremony, we went to a small restaurant and celebrated together. Judson ordered wine, and we clinked glasses. "Here's to you, Sophie. You did it." "We did it." He smiled. "Yes, we did." I felt relieved. University was behind me. I had my diploma in my hands. The complaints had stopped. The last one was a month ago. Maybe they had given up. Maybe they realized they had lost. A week later, I got a call from Marvin Tolley, director of a small private psychology clinic called Hope Connect on the outskirts of town. I had sent my resume there back in April and was waiting for a response. His voice was pleasant and warm. "Sophie, we reviewed your resume and spoke with your references. Professor Huntsman spoke very highly of you. We would like to offer you the position of junior psychologist. It's part-time at first, but with the prospect of growth." I barely managed to hold back a cry of joy. "Thank you, that's wonderful. When can I start?" "Come in tomorrow. We'll sign the contract and discuss the details." I hung up the phone, hugged Judson, and spun around in place. He laughed, picked me up, and spun me around. "See? Everything works out." The next day, I woke up early and put on a formal suit that I had bought especially for the interview. I drove to the clinic, a small 2-story building with light-colored walls and flowers at the entrance. Marvin met me in the lobby and smiled. "Sophie, come into the office." We sat down at the table. He took out a folder and laid out the contract. I started reading. He poured water into glasses and handed me one. Then he leaned forward and folded his arms on the table. "Sophie, before we sign, I need to talk to you about something." I looked up. Something in his voice had changed. "We received a letter, an email, anonymous, about you." Everything inside me went cold. Marvin turned his laptop screen toward me. On the screen was a letter. A short message sent from an anonymous address, a random set of letters and numbers before a dog icon. Dear Mr. Tolley, I feel it is necessary to inform you about Sophie Krebs, who, as I understand it, has applied for a job at your clinic. This person has serious psychological problems, is unstable, had numerous complaints during her university studies, lives in unsanitary conditions, and is unable to work with people. I recommend checking her qualifications and personal stability before hiring her. A concerned citizen. I read and reread it. My hands were shaking. Marvin looked at me, his face neutral, but his eyes questioning. It's not true, I said quietly. Not a word of it is true. I understand. But the letter exists, and I have to get to the bottom of this. I took the folder I had been carrying with me since the problems began out of my bag. I laid it out on the table. My honors diploma, letters of recommendation from Professor Huntsman and Dean Farley, certificates from the fire department and the sanitary and epidemiological station, photos of the apartment with dates, official refutations of all complaints. Marvin took the papers and read them carefully. He turned the pages, paused at certain paragraphs, and turned back. His face gradually relaxed. "This is impressive," he said finally. "You've been preparing." "I had to. This isn't the first letter like this." "Who's doing this?" I sighed. "My family. We had a falling out. They didn't accept my decisions. They're trying to hurt me, so I'll come back to them." Marvin put the papers down and rubbed his nose. "Sophie, I believe you. The documents speak for themselves. But you understand, if these letters keep coming, it's a problem. For the clinic, for you, for the clients. I know. I'm going to stop it. How? I'll sue them for harassment and defamation. I have evidence." He nodded slowly. "Okay, do that. In the meantime, let's sign the contract. But please keep me informed. If the situation worsens, I need to know." I signed the contract with a trembling hand. I left the clinic on shaky legs. I got into the car and rested my head on the steering wheel. I breathed deeply, counting my breaths as I had learned in my anti-stress therapy classes. At home, Judson immediately saw my face. "What happened?" I told him. He listened, his lips pressed together. When I finished, he said, "Enough. We have to stop them. Forever." "How?" "Neil, a guy from our company, a programmer. He can track where the letters are coming from. Find the IP addresses." "Is that legal?" "Not exactly. But if you don't use it in court as primary evidence, just as a reference, there won't be any problems. And once you know where the letters are coming from, you can gather legal evidence." I nodded. "Make the arrangements." Neil was a skinny guy in his mid-20s, wearing a t-shirt with some comic book print on it and glasses. We met at a coffee shop near the factory where Judson worked. Neil ordered coffee with 4 sugars, sat down across from us, and opened his laptop. "Show me the letters," he said without preamble. Marvin had forwarded the letter to me, and I showed it to Neil. He looked at the headers, the sender's address, and typed something. "Anonymous address, disposable, registered through a VPN, but not a perfect VPN. It can be cracked. Give me 2 days." He took the $50 Judson offered, nodded, and left. We waited. 2 days later, Neil sent a file. It contained a list of IP addresses from which the letters had been sent over the past 3 months. 3 addresses. I checked them using online geolocation services. The first was a private address in our city, 14 Fincher Road, his parents' house. The second was a business address, an office center on Grayling Avenue. That was where FlexZone's headquarters were located, Lars's workplace. The third was a public Wi-Fi hotspot, the Beans and Brews coffee shop in the central square. I printed out the data and put it in a folder. The next day, Judson and I went to the coffee shop. It was a small, cozy place with wooden tables and the smell of coffee and pastries. Behind the counter stood a barista, a young man with a tattoo on his arm. I approached him and showed him a photo of Helena from the family album that I had saved on my phone. "Excuse me, have you seen this woman here? Maybe she came with a laptop and sat for a long time?" The barista looked closely. "Yes, I've seen her. several times. The last time was about 2 weeks ago. She ordered a latte, sat in the corner and typed something. For an hour, maybe more. Are you sure it was her? No, pretty sure. She has a distinctive face, stern, and she always sat at the same table by the window. I took out my notebook. Can you give me a written statement that you saw her here on specific dates? He shrugged. If you need it, I can. But why? Family business. Very important. He wrote a short statement on a piece of paper, signed it, and dated it. I thanked him and left a tip. We had enough. IP addresses, barista testimony, camera footage from near our house where Lars met with Ms. Crosby, copies of all letters, complaints, inspections, chronology of events. I brought everything to Gret Mill. She looked it over and smiled. Sophie, this is a strong case, very strong. But before you file, try talking to them. Give them a warning. If they back off, you may not have to go to court. I didn't want to talk to my mother, but Greta was right. I dialed the number. Rings, 1, 2, 3. Then a click and a voice. What do you want? Cold, sharp, like ice. Mom, I know it's you. The letters, the complaints, everything. I have proof. Pause. Then laughter. Short, dismissive. Proof of what, Sophie? That someone cares about where you go, who you live with, how you work. It's not caring. It's harassment, defamation, and it's illegal. You wouldn't dare do anything. We're your family. You won't go against us. I turned on the recorder on my phone. If you don't leave me alone, I'll sue you for harassment, slander, invasion of privacy. I have all the evidence. Helena laughed again. Go ahead, let's see who wins. Do you think the judges will believe you? A girl who abandoned her family, got involved with who knows who, lives in some hole? I don't live in a hole. I graduated from university with honors. I have a job, and I have evidence of what you're doing. Evidence? What evidence? Some letters someone could have sent them? Not necessarily us. IP addresses, witness statements, camera recordings, everything is documented. Pause. A long one. Then a voice, quieter but no less harsh. Sophie, stop this circus. Come home. We'll forget everything. You'll start working as you should. Leave Judson alone. He's not for you. No. What do you mean, no? I'm not coming back. Ever. And if you don't stop, we'll see each other in court. I hung up the phone. My hands were shaking. Judson hugged me from behind and kissed me on the top of my head. Well done, I called my dad. He picked up after the first ring but remained silent. Dad, it's me, Sophia. Silence. Dad, I know what you're doing. Mom, you, Lars. It has to stop. Nothing. Just breathing. If you don't stop, I'll take you to court. All of you. He sighed, long, hard. Sophia, your mom, she wants what's best. Best for whom? For her or for me? For all of us, for the family. Families don't do things like this, Dad. This isn't love, it's control. He was silent for another minute. Then he said, do what you want, and hung up. I wrote to Lars. Lars, I know about the money you gave Mrs. Crosby, about the emails from your work computer. I have proof. Stop, or we'll see each other in court. He replied an hour later. Sophie, Mom just wants you to come back. She misses you. We all miss you. I didn't reply. Greta filed a lawsuit a week later. Harassment, defamation, invasion of privacy, emotional distress. We requested a restraining order prohibiting Helena, Victor, and Lars from contacting me or coming within 100 meters of me, as well as compensation for legal fees and moral damages in the amount of $10,000. The family hired a lawyer, a middle-aged man in an expensive suit with a confident voice. At the first hearing, he talked about family values, about how the parents were simply worried about their daughter, who had gone down the wrong path. Greta presented evidence, IP addresses, the barista's statement, camera recordings, copies of letters, the chronology of events, dates, times. Everything was clear, with no gaps. The judge, A woman in her 50s with gray hair and a stern face listened and asked questions. She questioned Helena, Victor, and Lars. Helena kept her composure, but I could see her hands shaking. Victor stared at the floor. Lars answered in monosyllables, avoiding my gaze. The trial lasted 3 months. Hearings, documents, testimony. I went to every hearing, sat next to Greta, kept my back straight. In August, the court issued its decision, a restraining order for 1 year, with the possibility of extension. A ban on any contact, approaching, letters, or phone calls. Compensation in the amount of $8,000, $6,000 for the lawyer, $2,000 for moral damages. I left the courtroom and sat down on a bench in front of the building. Judson sat down next to me. "You won." "Yes." "Why aren't you happy?" I looked at the sky. Gray, cloudy like rain. "Because I just lost my family. Forever." He took my hand and squeezed it. "You have me." "I know." We went home. I didn't cry that evening. I just sat on the sofa and stared at the wall. I felt empty, as if something had been cut out of me and left unfilled. Summer passed. Autumn came. I worked at the clinic, saw clients, wrote reports. Marvin was pleased, praised my work, offered me a full-time position. Judson got a promotion at the factory and was now in charge of a team of technicians. We lived, made plans, talked about the future. The letters stopped. There were no complaints. No one called or wrote. Silence. November arrived cold with rain and fog. I met Imogen Walsh at a conference for young professionals in the field of psychology. She worked as a psychiatrist at the Riverside Clinic, spoke intelligently and interestingly, and we exchanged numbers and agreed to meet for coffee. 3 months had passed since the trial. I began to feel that life was getting back on track, that maybe the worst was behind me. One evening while I was cooking dinner and Judson was watching the news, Imogen called me. Her voice sounded anxious. "Sophie, I'm sorry to bother you. Do you know a woman named Helena Krebs?" Everything inside me went cold. "Yes, she's my mother." "Why?" Pause. "You see, she was admitted to our clinic this morning in the psychiatric ward. I didn't sleep all night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying Imogen's words in my head. Psychiatric ward. Threatened suicide. Screamed that Sophie had ruined her life. Judson was breathing evenly beside me, asleep. I didn't wake him up, didn't want to say out loud what was going through my head. Mom in a mental hospital. Mom who always controlled everything, who never showed weakness, who ran the business, the people, me. Now locked up under supervision within white walls. In the morning, I called Imogen. "Can I come over to talk?" "Come over, but understand, I can't say much. Doctor-patient confidentiality." "I understand." The Riverside Clinic was on the outskirts of town, behind the park. It was a 3-story building with light beige walls and large windows with bars that were disguised as decorative elements. I parked, sat in the car for 5 minutes, gathering my courage. Imogen met me in the lobby. She gave me a quick hug. "Let's go to my office." We went up to the 2nd floor and entered a small room with a desk, 2 chairs, and a window overlooking the park. Imogen closed the door and gestured for me to sit down. "Sophie, I can't give you medical details, but as a friend, I can tell you the general situation. Your mother is in very bad shape. She's in a state of psychosis. She was screaming when she was brought in, fighting, trying to hit the nurse. We gave her a sedative and she's under observation now. What happened? Why did Lars bring her in? According to him, she hadn't left her room for 2 days, hadn't eaten or slept. She talked about you, about how you destroyed the family, that she had to do something. He was scared. He was afraid she would hurt herself or someone else. I sat with my hands clenched on my knees. Is it my fault? Imogen leaned forward. No, Sophie, it's not your fault. Your mother has problems that haven't been addressed for years. I saw her medical records, no previous visits to a psychiatrist, no treatment. But the symptoms have been there for a long time. Obsessive-compulsive disorder, narcissistic personality disorder. Losing control over you was the trigger, but you're not the cause. What happens next? Treatment. Medication, therapy, observation. How long it takes depends on her. A month, maybe more. I nodded. I don't want to see her. I understand, and that's your right. The restraining order is still in effect, right? Yes. Then you're not obligated, but if you change your mind, let me know. I'll arrange a supervised meeting if necessary. I thanked him and went home. Judson was waiting and made coffee. I told him. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, "It's not your fault. Remember that." A week passed, then 2. Lars sent a message through his lawyer so as not to violate the order. "Sophie, Mom is in the hospital. Dad is very ill. She hardly eats. She's silent all day. I can barely cope myself. Business Mom, Dad, it's too much." I didn't reply. I felt guilty, but I didn't know what to do. I called Imogen. "How's Mom?" "Better. She's taking her medication and going to therapy. She's acknowledged that she has a problem. That's a big step." "How long will she be there?" "If things continue like this, a month, maybe 2, then outpatient observation." The months dragged on slowly. Winter came early with snow already in December. I worked, saw clients, listened to their stories. Sometimes I caught myself thinking that I could be in their place, telling someone how my family had ruined my life. But I kept a straight face, gave advice, offered support. And in January, Imogen called. "Sophie, your mom is being discharged. She's finished her treatment. Her condition is stable. She's coming home." I felt relieved. "That's good. Thanks for telling me." "She asked about you. She wanted to see you." "The order is still in effect until August. I can't." "I understand. But she said to tell Sophia she's sorry." I was silent. I didn't know what to feel. Joy, doubt, emptiness. February. Cold with a sharp wind. I was on my way home from work when Imogen called again. Her voice was confused. "Sophie, I'm sorry, your father is here now. He admitted himself this morning. He says he's tired and wants to rest." I pulled over to the side of the road. "What?" "Your father is in our clinic, voluntary admission. He complained of a loss of meaning in life, depression, insomnia. The doctors examined him. He's physically healthy, mentally stable, but he insists he needs treatment." I didn't understand. "Is he faking it?" "Maybe. Or maybe he really is tired. Sophie, come over. Talk to him. Maybe you can figure out what's going on." I arrived the next day. Imogen showed me to a room on the 3rd floor. It was bright and clean with a single bed, a chair, and a small nightstand. Victor was sitting on the bed, with his back to the wall, reading a book. He looked up when we entered. "Sophie, you came." His voice was calm, almost indifferent. I sat down on a chair. Imogen left, leaving us alone, but she didn't close the door. Rules. "Dad, what are you doing here?" He put down his book. "Resting." "From what?" "From everything. Helena, business, decisions that need to be made. It's quiet here, Sophie. No one demands anything. I like it." I looked at him. His face was calm, emotionless. His hands were folded on his lap. He had always been like that. Quiet, detached, as if life passed him by, and he just watched. "Dad, you can't stay here. This is a clinic for people with mental disorders." I told the doctors that I had lost the meaning of life. They agreed to treat me. "But that's not true. You're not depressed." He looked at me. For the first time in our entire conversation, he really looked at me. "How do you know, Sophie? You're a psychologist, not a psychiatrist, and you haven't seen me in years. I see you now. You're calm, clear, speaking without tension. People who are depressed aren't like that." He smiled. "Barely. Maybe I'm a very good actor." I stood up. "Dad, this is crazy. Mom just left. Lars is carrying everything on his own. And you've decided to run away. I'm not running away. I'm taking a break. For the first time in 30 years. I left the room. Imogen was waiting in the hallway. What did he say? That he likes it here, that he's resting. She sighed. Sophie, we can't keep him here against his will if he's not a threat to himself or others. But if you think he's faking it, we can do an additional evaluation. A panel of doctors. Do it. The committee met 3 days later. 3 psychiatrists, Imogen, and me as a family member. Victor was brought in and sat opposite us. The doctors asked questions about his mood, sleep, appetite, thoughts of suicide. He answered briefly, calmly. Tired. I don't see the point. I want to rest. One of the psychiatrists, a man in his 60s, looked at me. Ms. Krebs, do you think your father is faking it? Yes. He's healthy. He just doesn't want to return to real life. Victor looked at me. Sophie, did you want to come back to us? To the family that controlled your every move? I was silent. He continued, I'm tired of controlling. Tired of listening to Helena, following her plans, living her life. Here, I can just be. Read, sleep, not think about tomorrow. The psychiatrists exchanged glances. Imogen wrote something in her notebook. Finally, the senior doctor said, Mr. Krebs, we understand your fatigue, but the clinic is not a place for rest. Unless you have a serious mental disorder, we can't keep you here at public expense. We recommend outpatient therapy, perhaps a vacation, a change of scenery. But your hospitalization is over. Victor nodded. When? Tomorrow. He got up and left. He didn't say goodbye. The next day, he was discharged. Imogen called in the evening. Your father went home to Helena's. Lars picked him up. I thanked her and hung up. Judson hugged me from behind. Is it over? I don't know. March Judson and I had saved enough to make a down payment on a house. It was small, 2 stories, in the suburbs, 20 minutes from the city. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, a living room, a small yard with trees. A 30-year mortgage. But it was ours. We moved in April. Judson took a week off work and we unpacked boxes, arranged furniture, hung pictures. I felt something like happiness, our home, our life. Finally. A week passed. We went to bed at midnight, exhausted after a long day. I was putting up a bookshelf. Judson was fixing the faucet in the bathroom. We fell asleep quickly. I woke up to a smell, sharp, acrid, familiar, smoke. I opened my eyes. Darkness. But the smell was getting stronger. I nudged Judson. Judson, wake up! He jumped up and sniffed. What is it? Smoke. Something's burning. We jumped up and ran out of the bedroom. The smell was coming from downstairs. Judson ran down the stairs and I followed him. He turned on the light in the hallway and looked at the window. Through the glass, I could see flames. The porch was on fire. Fire! Sophie, get out. Quick! He grabbed the phone, dialed 911, and shouted the address. I ran to the kitchen and grabbed the fire extinguisher we had bought a week ago, just in case. Judson pushed me toward the door. Don't come near. I'll do it myself. He ran out the back door onto the porch and ran ahead. I saw him spraying foam from the fire extinguisher. The flames diminished but did not go out. I could hear sirens. The fire department was on its way. I stood on the lawn in front of the house, barefoot in my pajamas, shivering. Not from the cold, but from fear. The firefighters arrived in 5 minutes. They quickly extinguished the fire. The chief of the brigade approached us. Which one of you is the owner? We are, said Judson. The porch was set on fire. Someone poured flammable liquid on it and set it on fire. Do you see the marks? Here and here. I looked. Dark spots on the wood, the smell of gasoline. Do you have cameras? The firefighter asked. We haven't installed them yet. We just moved in. You need to install them and call the police. This is arson. The police arrived 20 minutes later. 2 officers, a man and a woman. They took statements, photographed the porch, and took samples of the liquid. We'll investigate. Do you have any enemies? Anyone who might have done this? I looked at Judson. He nodded. Yes, I said. My family. The police inspected the area in the morning when there was enough light. The porch was charred, black spots on the wood, the smell of smoke and gasoline. The neighbor across the street, old Mr. Jenkins, came over when he saw the cars. Are you all right? I saw the flames last night and wanted to call, but you had already called the fire department. Judson nodded. Thank you. Do you happen to have any cameras near your house? Mr. Jenkins scratched the back of his head. There's one above the garage. It's pointed at the driveway, but it might have caught something. Would you like to see? The police went with him. I stayed with Judson near the house, sitting on the steps, hugging each other. It was cold. The wind was sharp, and the April morning had not yet warmed up. I was shivering, not from the cold, but from the realization of what had happened. Someone had come to our house, and set it on fire. An hour later, the police returned. A female officer, Senior Sergeant Lauder, was holding a tablet. We have a recording. Would you like to see it? We approached. She opened the video and paused it. This was filmed at 2:23 a.m. Watch. On the screen was our street, dimly lit by streetlights. A figure in dark clothes, hood over their head, walks slowly, looking around. Approaches our porch, takes a bottle out of a bag, pours the contents onto the wooden steps and railing. Then a lighter, a flame. The figure steps back, watches for a few seconds, then runs away. Sergeant Lauder rewinds, pauses on the frame where the figure is closest to the camera. The face is not visible. The hood covers it. But the build, the gait, female. Approximately 5 feet 6 inches. Average weight. Do you know anyone who fits this description? I stared at the screen. The gait. I knew that gait. Quick, decisive, shoulders back. Helena always walked as if she owned the world. My mother, I said quietly. That's my mother. Judson squeezed my hand. Sergeant Lauder wrote something in her notebook. Name? Helena Krebs. She was recently discharged from Riverside Psychiatric Clinic. We have a restraining order against her, valid until August. Lauder looked at me. Restraining order? Yes, for harassment and slander. The court issued the order last year. Then it's a violation of the order plus arson. We'll arrest her today. Give us the address. I gave it to them. They left. The two of us were left alone. Judson hugged me. Now she won't be able to do anything. She'll go to jail. Maybe. Helena was arrested at noon. She was home alone. Victor had gone to the office. Although he had long since retired, he still helped Lars with paperwork. The police showed her the video. At first, she denied it. That's not me. You can't see the face. It could be anyone. But then, when they told her about the DNA analysis from the bottle found near the house, she broke down. She confessed. She said that Sophia had ruined the family and that she had to stop it. Sergeant Lauder called me back in the evening. Mrs. Krebs, your mother is in custody. She is accused of arson and violating a restraining order. But there's something else. She's saying strange things. We called a psychiatrist. What kind of things? That Sophia isn't real, that she's been replaced, that the real Sophia will come back. We don't understand. She seems unstable. I sighed. She was discharged from a psychiatric clinic a month ago. She was supposed to take medication and go to therapy. It seems she didn't. The psychiatric examination was conducted the next day. Imogen called in the evening. Her voice sounded tired. Sophie, hey, your mother is here again, but not in the usual ward, in a closed one, for patients who pose a threat. What did the examination show? She faked her recovery. She didn't take her medication, lied in therapy, said what we wanted to hear, but in reality, she was planning revenge. They found notes on her. Dates, addresses, plans. Sophie, she was going to do something terrible. I sat down on the sofa, my legs buckling. What exactly? I can't give you any details, but it's serious enough to keep her locked up. The doctors say she's deeply psychotic, has manic ideas, and has completely lost touch with reality. The treatment will take years, if it helps at all. How long will she be there? We don't know, until it's proven that she's safe, maybe forever. I hung up the phone. Judson sat next to me and hugged me. I didn't cry. I just sat there, staring at the wall. I felt empty, as if something important had ended, but there was no joy in it. A week later, Lars came. He rang the doorbell and stood on the porch, his hands in his pockets. His face was tired with dark circles under his eyes. I didn't let him in. We talked on the street. "Sophie, I can't take it anymore," he said without preamble. "Mom's in the loony bin. Dad's barely hanging on. The business is falling apart. I got into university in Oregon, doing an MBA. I'm leaving in a month." I looked at him, the brother I'd known all my life but never understood. He always listened to Mom, did what he was told, didn't ask questions, and now he was running away. What will happen to the business? Dad is selling part of it. He's keeping one club and transferring the rest to his partners. He says he can manage on his own. And Mom? Dad will visit her once a week. The doctors say family ties help. I nodded. Lars looked at me, his face tense. Then he suddenly hugged me. Tightly. Desperately. I felt his shoulders shake. He was crying for the first time in all these years. "I'm sorry, Sophie. I'm sorry I didn't protect you. I should have done something, but I was afraid." I hugged him back. "You're a victim too, Lars. We both were." He let go of me and wiped his eyes with his sleeve. "Maybe in Oregon I'll find myself. I'll start therapy, like you said. I'll work on myself. Do it. You deserve a better life." He left. I watched his car disappear around the corner. Judson came up behind me and put his arms around my waist. He's still a child inside. Yes, like I used to be. The months flew by. Lars left in May. He sent short messages. Arrived, started training, found a therapist. I replied just as briefly. We weren't close, but at least we talked. Victor sold 3 clubs and kept 1. He officially retired, but still went to the office once a week, checked papers, met with the accountant. Imogen said he visited Helena every Friday, sat with her for an hour, silent most of the time. Helena talks about the past, about family, about plans that never came to fruition. Victor listens, nods, and leaves. I didn't see my father. I didn't want to. Imogen gave me a photo taken by chance in the clinic hallway. Victor was sitting on a bench waiting for permission to visit. His face was gray, his wrinkles deeper, his hair whiter. He had aged 10 years in a few months. I changed jobs in the summer. Marvin was a good boss, but I wanted something more. I found a position at New Horizons Clinic in a neighboring town, a 30-minute drive away. My specialty is working with victims of domestic violence. My experience and my story helped me understand my clients. I told them what I needed to hear myself once. You are not to blame. You have a right to your life. You are stronger than you think. Judson proposed to me on the anniversary of the fire. April, a year later. We repaired the porch. It is now stronger with fireproof coating. Judson installed cameras around the house, 4 of them, every corner under surveillance. I joked that we were living in a fortress. He said it was better than reliving that night. That evening, we sat on the porch and watched the sunset. Judson took my hand and squeezed it. "Sophie, we've been through a lot, too much, but we're together, and I want it to stay that way." He took out a box and opened it. A small ring, simple, without unnecessary embellishments, just the kind I liked. "Will you marry me?" I nodded. I couldn't speak. My throat was tight. He put the ring on my finger and kissed me. We sat like that until dark. The wedding was in August, a small, intimate affair, 20 people, friends, colleagues, Imogen as the maid of honor. Lars didn't come. He was busy with exams, but he sent a card and a gift. I didn't invite Victor. Helena was in the clinic under lock and key. We exchanged vows in a small chapel on the outskirts of town. Imogen cried as I walked down the aisle. Judson smiled, his eyes moist. The priest said words I could barely hear. My head was empty, my heart overflowing. I now pronounce you husband and wife. We kissed to applause. I felt something like happiness. Maybe not complete, not perfect, but real. Summer passed. Autumn came warm with golden leaves and long evenings. I sat on the porch every morning before work, drinking coffee, looking at the street. I thought about my mother sometimes, about how she used to be, strong, confident, the person I wanted to be like, and then about how she had become, broken, crazy, dangerous. Now, I felt regret, anger, but more often, emptiness. I accepted that the family I knew no longer existed. One morning in October, a letter arrived. A plain paper envelope, a stamp from Oregon, neat handwriting. I opened it and read it. Sophie, hello, how's your life? I'm doing well here. School is difficult but interesting. I started therapy, as I promised. The doctor says I'm making progress. We talked about childhood, about mom, about you. I understand many things now that I didn't understand before. I'm sorry I wasn't a better brother. I'm sorry I didn't protect you. Maybe someday we'll become a real family. Not the one we had, but a new one, a different one, a better one. I hope so. Your brother, Lars. I folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. I smiled. Maybe someday. Judson came out onto the porch and kissed me on the top of my head. Who's the letter from? From Lars. He says he's doing well. That's good. He deserves a normal life. Yes, like all of us. I finished my coffee and got up. A working day lay ahead. Clients were waiting. Stories to listen to, pain to understand, people to help. I walked to the car and looked back at the house. Our home, our life, not perfect, not without scars, but ours. I didn't know what would happen next. Would my mother ever recover? Would Lars be able to build a new life? Would my father forgive himself for years of silence? Not all stories have a happy ending, but I had something more important. Freedom. A job I was proud of. Judson, who loved me for who I was, and myself stronger than ever. I got in the car and started the engine. A new day lay ahead, and I was ready for it.